have a joy about me or an effervescence or something, but it is not, it's genuine.
Angie Dickinson once sent shockwaves through all of Hollywood when she revealed the secret of a lesbian actress with whom she had carried on a hidden romantic relationship for decades. As a dazzling beauty icon of the golden age of cinema, Angie was the woman whom male movie stars, legendary singers, and even the most powerful moguls all longed to possess. Yet behind the glittering aura and the beauty admired across the world, she concealed a truth no one could have imagined: a clandestine affair with one of Hollywood's leading actresses, a relationship that unfolded in the shadows, hidden away behind extravagant parties and beneath the sparkling lights of film cameras. This affair not only directly threatened both of their careers, pushing them dangerously close to the edge of collapse, but also forced them to live under the haunting weight of anonymous phone calls, chilling threats, and the suffocating grip of an unwritten law in Hollywood, a code so ruthless that even today it still sends shivers down the spine of those who speak of it. So who exactly was that mysterious actress? And why, after nearly half a century of silence, did Angie Dickinson finally decide to expose the truth? All of it will be revealed in today's video. Back in the 1950s, Angie Dickinson was a name that no one in Hollywood could ignore. Her seductive beauty and commanding aura made countless men fall hopelessly in love. Elvis Presley once invited her to a private movie screening, while Frank Sinatra relentlessly pursued her at glamorous parties. From film stars to the most powerful directors, every man dreamed of winning Angie's heart. She was the embodiment of perfection, the ideal figure that all of Hollywood yearned for. But hidden beneath that flawless exterior, Angie had given her love to someone no one in the film capital would ever have suspected: a legendary lesbian actress whose name had already been etched into history. Barbara Stanwyck, who was 22 years older than Angie, had already become an immortal icon of Hollywood since the 1930s, forever associated with timeless classics such as Stella Dallas and Double Indemnity. Yet behind the powerful image and the aura that seemed untouchable to the public eye lay a personal life that was complex, shrouded in secrecy, and endlessly intriguing to those who followed her career. After her high-profile marriage to actor Robert Taylor, once celebrated as the golden standard of Hollywood romance, Barbara abruptly announced their divorce in 1951 without offering any clear explanation. From that moment on, she lived alone in her mansion at 1055 Loma Vista Drive in Beverly Hills. She never remarried, never appeared publicly with any man by her side, and consistently refused to disclose even the smallest detail about her private affairs. That prolonged silence only fueled speculation. In 1954, Confidential magazine boldly published a story titled "Hollywood's Stone-Faced Star and Her Shadowy Love Life," directly questioning Barbara's mysterious romantic world. They described her as the only woman among Paramount's roster of powerful stars who appeared without the presence of a man. Whispered rumors about her hidden relationships with younger female colleagues began to spread, and the name that surfaced most persistently in those conversations was none other than Angie Dickinson. Between 1955 and 1957, Angie and Barbara were frequently seen together at lavish parties hosted by director Howard Hawks and screenwriter Charles Brackett. They would often choose to sit side by side, and on more than one occasion they were observed stepping away from the crowd to spend time together in a private setting. At a spring gathering in 1956 at the Sunset Tower Hotel, an anonymous photographer claimed he had witnessed Barbara deliberately placing her hand on Angie's shoulder while they were engaged in conversation in a secluded corner. That photograph was never made public, but the story spread quickly throughout the entertainment world. Hollywood at that time was in no way ready to confront such a truth. The unexplainable closeness between Barbara and Angie, combined with Barbara's reclusive lifestyle, soon became one of the most heavily guarded secrets of the film industry. Over time, the story was gradually erased from public memory, as though it had been absorbed into the veil of secrets that Hollywood was determined never to unveil. But no secret lasts forever, and on one fateful night in 1956, inside a hillside mansion in Beverly Hills, when their eyes met for the very first time, everything changed forever. That seemingly accidental encounter opened the door to a passionate relationship, but it also carried with it countless challenges and dangers that lay ahead. Although no photograph was ever made public and no direct confirmation was ever given by the people involved, if you are patient enough to trace the fragments that have leaked over nearly 70 years, you will gradually uncover a haunting truth. Between Angie Dickinson and Barbara Stanwyck, there once existed a real love affair. It all began on the night of May 18, 1956, at a discreet party held at Cary Grant's Benedict Canyon mansion. The gathering was reserved only for Cary's closest friends, with no journalists and no photographers present, just major stars and a few rising newcomers. Angie was among the guests that evening, still a fresh face at the time, not yet the shining figure she would later become. Barbara Stanwyck, already an established Hollywood legend, arrived later than the others. Different from her usual appearances that night, she wore very light makeup and came alone. When she stepped into the back garden where Angie was speaking with a group of young screenwriters, no one could have imagined that on that very night, a conversation lasting nearly 40 minutes would alter the course of their lives. Roberto Delgado, a waiter at the party, later recalled Barbara and Angie stood apart from the crowd. No one knew what they said, but there was a strange closeness between them. Only a week after that event, Angie suddenly turned down a role in the lineup, citing poor health. Yet a leaked internal memo from Columbia's directing office revealed that the true reason was to avoid drawing the attention of the press after the Benedict incident. The question remains what exactly happened that night which made Angie withdraw so abruptly. From that moment, the bond between Barbara and Angie began to appear more clearly. In the June 1956 issue of Photoplay, a blurry photograph surfaced showing two female figures sitting close together in a dressing room at Paramount. Readers immediately speculated, could that be Barbara Stanwyck and Angie Dickinson? Just 1 week later, the photograph was removed from the reprint without any explanation. The image was hazy and unclear, yet it was enough to ignite suspicion. More signs soon followed. In July of the same year, editor Lydia Morgan of Modern Screen published a veiled article titled "The Secret Woman in a Star's Life," describing a veteran actress quietly caring for a young performer in Hollywood Hills. Years later, in her memoir, Lydia admitted that the piece had been inspired by Barbara and Angie, though she dared not publish their names for fear of being sued. Even television could not entirely avoid the whispers. On a late-night newscast, KTTV reported that rumors are spreading about a relationship between two actresses, one older and one younger, who are said to be renting a villa in West Hollywood under strict protection. Though there was no concrete proof, the report included a detail about a pearl-colored Cadillac parked regularly in front of the house at 731 North Harper Avenue, which matched exactly with Barbara's personal car, a coincidence that was difficult to dismiss. The pieces of the puzzle grew increasingly tangled and difficult to explain. One of Barbara's private drivers was dismissed after he let slip that he had driven the two women to the Synagro, but had to take them in separate trips. A studio secretary remembered clearly Angie refused to shoot on location because she didn't want to leave Los Angeles, and the reason had nothing to do with her health. No matter how hard they tried to conceal it, both Barbara and Angie could not escape the watchful eyes that lingered within the industry. There was never a photograph clear enough to make the cover of a magazine, but small fragments of stories gradually came together, and Hollywood began to buzz with speculation. One member of Paramount's board of directors admitted, "No one says it outright, but everyone knows they are hiding something." And eventually what could not remain hidden forever was bound to be revealed. A secret love affair between two celebrated stars. A relationship that could never have a future yet was far too intense to be abandoned. And the undeniable truth was, this no secret can remain buried forever, no matter how desperately one tries to cover it up. In July of 1958, an unexpected photograph emerged that completely changed the situation. At Venice Beach, Angie Dickinson and Barbara Stanwyck were caught in a suggestive moment holding hands, and in the exchange of their gazes, one could clearly see a kind of affection that could not be hidden. At first, the Los Angeles Times chose to avoid the matter and refrain from publishing the photo. But shortly afterward, it appeared in the Hollywood Gazette, accompanied by a shocking headline, "Just friendship or something deeper between two stars." That headline struck Hollywood like a bomb exploding in its very center, throwing the entire entertainment world into chaos. This incident officially marked the end of the peaceful life that both Angie and Barbara had once known. The press immediately swarmed in fabricating complicated stories about their relationship. The two of them were quickly swept into a whirlwind of relentless criticism to the point that their private lives were severely invaded and gradually descended into a crisis that seemed impossible to escape. Soon after, Confidential magazine published a satirical article about Barbara Stanwyck exploiting details of her love life that had never before been made public. The piece emphasized that although Barbara had once married actor Robert Taylor in 1939, their marriage fell apart in 1951 without any explanation. From then on, she lived alone, and her solitude only fueled the public's curiosity and unending speculation about her personal affairs. What few people knew was that throughout those years, Barbara had constantly been surrounded by rumors of same-sex relationships. Sources within the industry revealed that although Barbara had once had a legal husband, her true love was believed to be Mercedes d'Acosta, a famous Hollywood screenwriter. Their relationship, although never publicly confirmed, had long been considered an inseparable part of Barbara's story. And then, the faint traces of that secret love affair suddenly surfaced, becoming the center of public scrutiny. Angie, though not directly tied to Barbara's past, unintentionally became the one to bear the heaviest consequences. Every gesture and every action she made, whether by accident or by intention, was scrutinized and magnified under the unforgiving gaze of the public. The press branded her as the one dragging Barbara into ruin while continuously publishing vicious articles with harsh headlines such as "Dickinson, the woman who wants to break every rule of Hollywood." The wave of criticism surrounded her from all sides, leaving Angie with no way out. At that time, Frank Sinatra, Angie's longtime friend, could no longer stand by and watch her life slowly collapse. Yet, instead of reaching out to help her, Frank, with his immense power and his characteristic arrogance, chose to intervene in a way that only he could. As one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Frank shone not only because of his musical talent, but also because of his enormous influence across the entire entertainment industry. It was he who had supported Angie from the very beginning, back when she was still an unknown name. When the affair between Angie and Barbara became a matter of public discussion, Frank could not remain indifferent. He believed that both his reputation and his career were being threatened by the rising tide of public opinion, and he immediately demanded that Angie put an end to the relationship. "You cannot allow such a romance to destroy your entire career," Frank warned her. "Hollywood will never forgive you for what you are doing." From that point on, Frank's control over Angie became increasingly visible. He organized every one of her public appearances, forcing her to attend events where Barbara was entirely absent. His close associate Peter Lawford began to monitor Angie's schedule with great attention. On one occasion, simply because Angie did not answer a call from him, Frank sent someone directly to her apartment to check on her. Meanwhile, the pressure from public opinion only grew more suffocating. Tabloids such as Screenland and Modern Screen continued to stir up the story, pushing the situation into chaos and beyond control. In particular, an article in Hollywood Life titled "The Price of Fame" Even the love between two women forced the public to confront a cruel reality. The relationship between Angie and Barbara could not survive in a society still bound tightly by rigid norms. A feminine icon cannot have a same-sex love. The article concluded, turning the two of them into targets of harsh condemnation within the Hollywood entertainment world. Angie, though she still tried to meet Barbara in secret, increasingly felt the growing distance between them. A close friend of Angie recalled, "She once told me that she felt like she couldn't breathe under all this pressure. Frank and public opinion had taken everything away, and now she had nothing left to hold on to." But what hurt Angie the most was the truth. She finally realized everything Frank had done was not out of genuine concern for her, but only to protect his own image and position. To Frank, Angie had never truly been a priority. October 15, 1958. Everything had gone too far, surpassing the very limits of what Angie could endure. And it was at that very moment that the relationship between Angie and Barbara collapsed completely. In a Beverly Hills hotel room, the silence was so heavy it felt suffocating. Angie Dickinson sat motionless beside the telephone, the dim light filtering through the window casting a faint glow across her bewildered face while her eyes were veiled with an overwhelming confusion. She waited for the call from Frank Sinatra, a call that had now become the final turning point, the last push forcing her to make a decision she could no longer postpone. The time to choose had arrived. A week earlier, Frank had already called her, but unlike their previous conversations this time, it was no longer advice. It was an order. His voice was cold, sharp as a blade, and it left Angie breathless. "I don't want to hear anything more. You choose me or you choose Barbara." Angie could hear the anger in every word. Frank was not a man who tolerated being challenged. What bound them together was not simply affection, but a relationship rooted in power, where Frank always held the upper hand, keeping control over everything. He had been the one to support Angie back when she was nothing but an unknown girl. But now, with everything spiraling into chaos, he could no longer endure what he saw as her rebellion. Her love for Barbara was no longer just a private matter. It had spilled beyond personal boundaries and become a very real threat to Angie's career, a career Frank had worked tirelessly to both protect and control. Standing at a merciless crossroads, Angie was forced to choose between love and her future. It was a brutal decision she could not escape. And in that moment, she made the choice that would haunt her for the rest of her life, to leave Barbara in order to safeguard herself in the unforgiving world of Hollywood. The following morning, as the first rays of daylight slipped through the curtains, Angie went to Barbara's mansion. In her heart, she felt as though she was walking straight into a trap. For weeks, she had dodged Barbara's calls, evading every attempt at contact. But this time, she knew she could not run anymore. She could not wait any longer. She could not prolong the relationship. The large room inside remained unchanged, yet the emptiness in the air made everything feel foreign and hollow. No longer was Barbara there, sitting on the sofa with her favorite book in hand. No longer was the faint fragrance of the oil lamp lingering in the space. Only silence remained, silence heavy with sorrow. Angie quietly set down a short, chilling letter. "I'm sorry, I cannot go on. I cannot live under those eyes. I cannot hold on to this relationship when the entire world has already turned its back on me." After leaving that letter, Angie walked away from Barbara's life with finality. No explanations, no second chances. That decision, whether right or wrong, cut into both of their hearts like a knife. Moments later, Angie got into her car, left Barbara's mansion behind, and drove straight to the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, where Frank was preparing for a major performance. That evening, the two of them appeared together publicly before the press and the public as if nothing had ever happened, as though everything had returned to normal. But on Angie's face, there was not even a trace of joy. She felt like a lifeless puppet, no longer herself. Her relationship with Frank was not love. It was compromise, bitter and hollow. And deep down, Angie knew all that was genuine within her had been lost forever. The press, of course, wasted no time. The very next day, the New York Daily News ran a piece with the headline "Old Flame, New Flame Angie Dickinson and the Cruel Choice." The article did not merely recount her breakup with Barbara, but delved into the betrayal Angie had dealt to the woman who had once been the greatest love of her life. It described Angie's belated regret and questioned whether she truly loved Frank or if she was merely running away from herself. And then came the relentless tide of criticism. Other newspapers piled on with harsh judgments. Hollywood Reporter bluntly declared a love betrayed not only by society, but by the very people who shared it. The attacks came one after another, dragging Angie into a worsening storm. Barbara, long admired for her strength and resilience, now faced a devastating emotional blow. With Angie cutting all contact, refusing to answer a single call, and leaving without a goodbye, Barbara was no longer herself. A close friend recalled Barbara once told me, "I chose to live a hidden life, not because I was afraid, but because I could not bear to love someone the world would never accept." She lost not only her love, but also her faith in herself. In the weeks that followed, Barbara withdrew into silence, refraining from any public appearances, ignoring every attempt Angie made as though everything between them was truly over. As for Angie, although she continued her association with Frank, nothing was ever the same. They still appeared together at lavish parties, dazzling events, walking the red carpet side by side. But within her heart, every spark of freshness and freedom had been extinguished. Each time she strode beside Frank, Angie felt like nothing but a shadow, a hollow shell controlled and manipulated by a man she no longer loved. To the public, she remained a radiant star, a Hollywood icon. But to herself, Angie was fading piece by piece. She was no longer the independent, creative woman she once was, but merely a puppet her strings pulled by Frank, once a trusted friend, now the very man who confined her freedom. The betrayal between Angie and Barbara marked not only the end of a passionate emotional love, but also a searing psychological wound. Angie had chosen Frank to protect her career, but the price she paid was unbearably high. She had betrayed her truest love with Barbara, only to later realize that in her struggle to preserve her image, she had lost the very things that mattered most. Hollywood, with all of its dazzling glamour and glittering facades, was in the end the place where genuine souls were forced to sacrifice their most authentic feelings. Thus, the story of Angie Dickinson and Barbara Stanwyck is truly a secret that stretched across decades, a romance both passionate and turbulent, hidden beneath the dazzling glamour of Hollywood. Angie, a woman blessed with beauty, talent, and even power, ultimately could not escape the rigid and unforgiving rules imposed by society. In the end, she was forced to sacrifice her love simply to preserve her career. This story is not merely about a concealed romance, but also a reflection of a Hollywood overflowing with unspoken truths, where countless relationships were forced to exist in the shadows hidden behind the blinding lights of the stage. So, what do you think about the decision Angie made under the crushing weight of all that pressure? Was she truly worthy of the sacrifices and losses she endured, or was it Hollywood itself that stripped away the most important and genuine parts of her life? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories about the untold secrets buried within the glittering yet shadow-filled world of entertainment.